This is part 2 of the Revenge of the Sith review. If you haven't seen part 1, what are you doing? Go watch that first, then come back to this. Alright, getting on with the video. We then get Order 66, which is the execution of all the Jedi. And this is a pretty well crafted scene, you know. The music really helps. I'll speak more on the music towards the end. But you know, it's honestly really tragic how they all get betrayed by clones they've been fighting with. And I think the films could have done a better job showing them actually being companions with the clones. Because, you know, it's not much of a shock when this random army we haven't really got to know well, you know, betrays them. It's much better once you've seen sort of the Clone Wars and, you know, you get the sense of partnership between the clones and the Jedi where this cuts much deeper. But the scene is still honestly really great, and you know, you're seeing all these Jedi get betrayed, and I like sort of the realization you see on a lot of them's sort of faces, because they either see or they can sort of feel that something bad's happened, and you know, it's really good. And then you see sort of Yoda, and he manages to react in time and save himself. But I just love it as sort of Palpatine's plan, you know, it really shows it is like the ultimate chess move where he set up all these pieces, and finally now they're all sort of closing in, and it's, you know, such an evil plan, and it really helps Palpatine's character, whereas he was just sort of an image of evil in the originals, where he's much more of a character, and you really get how insidious he is, and also how manipulative and how cunning he is. You know, he's the epitome of what a Sith is. And then we get Anakin marching on the Jedi Temple as well. And you know, we get him killing Jedi, and then we get him killing Jedi younglings as well, kids. And you know, some people say that's too far. I think that's kind of the point. You know, it's somewhat showing how Anakin is so tunnel visioned on just getting what he needs to save his wife. You know, he doesn't care anymore. He knows he's too far gone, and he's not even trying to be somewhat good anymore. He's just doing what he wants almost. You know, it's somewhat selfish, even though he's trying to do it for a selfless act. And I don't know if this is giving George Lucas too much credit, but the kid that like speaks to him, it's always reminded me of the child version of Anakin. And I've always seen that as him metaphorically sort of killing off the aspect of him that was so prevalent when he was a child, and that's the idea of hope. You know, he's destroying that in a visual sense almost for us. And maybe that is giving too much credit to George Lucas, but I like to think that. And the idea now that he's fully consumed by fear, I think that's a really good way to show it. And we see that Obi-Wan's also survived, and he manages to reunite with Yoda, and they plan to sort of figure out what the hell's going on. I love how they're, you know, super confused. Like, if you put yourself in their shoes, you'd have really no idea what has happened, and they're purely basing it off sort of what they're feeling through the Force. And I love how they go to the Jedi Temple to somewhat figure out what's happened. And we get a great moment where Anakin's also sent off to deal with the remaining separatists. And we get this sort of cross-cutting montage of Anakin killing the separatists, Obi-Wan and Yoda sort of making their way through the ruins and wreckage of the Jedi Temple where there's just corpses everywhere. And also Palpatine giving his speech of how the Republic's getting converted into the Empire. And it's super good. It's sort of showing us Palpatine wrapping up all loose ends in a visual sense. You know, the separatists are gone, the Jedi are gone, and there's nothing standing in his way to just destroy the Republic in a sense and create it into what he wants. And it's honestly so good, and the music's great throughout it. And yeah, honestly, some really good sort of cross-cutting there that Star Wars is very much known for. And then we see that Obi-Wan figures out that Anakin, you know, is the Jedi that turned against them when Yoda's saying, oh, they've been killed by a lightsaber. And I like somewhat how Obi-Wan's response isn't like sad. It's almost in disbelief. You know, he's somewhat like mesmerized in a weird way where he can't really believe it. Even though he's seeing he's very much still with him in all the emotions. And you know, he goes to see Padme to find out where Anakin is. And I love the part where she's saying, are you going to go and kill him? And I think in his heart he wants to say no. You know, he wants to have faith in his friend that he can bring him back. And I think he does. But he doesn't give an answer because he knows that'd be lying, because he knows he might have to. And it's just such good stuff for Obi-Wan's character. It really shows his selflessness in a weird way. You know, he's not going to lie. He will do what is necessarily, unfortunately, even if it is someone he sees as somewhat of a brother. And then we get into sort of the final part of the film where Padme goes over to see Anakin on Mustafar, and Obi-Wan like hides in the toilet or whatever that is somehow. And they go over to Mustafar, And, you know, some people roast this bit with Anakin's dialogue when he's talking to Padme because it sounds bad. To me, that's always been the point. He's meant to sound delusional at this point, you know. His goal was always to save Padme, and he feels like that's confirmed now because he's done everything that was asked of him. And when he's on about somewhat taking over the galaxy, you know, to me, that's always been him. He never wanted that, really, but it seems so close now. He feels like going for it almost. And it just shows how the power somewhat got to his head because he's allowed to be sort of unleashed for a period of time. Like, he hasn't faced any challenge since he turned to the dark side almost, and he feels unstoppable in a way, and that really does feed into the final fight. Obi-Wan finally finishes having a poo and he gets out of the toilet. And, you know, he comes to see Anakin, and Anakin then strangles Padme, which I think shows how much his arrogance has got to him at this point, you know, with him using all his power, not limited by a code or any sort of morals. And then he somewhat realises what he's doing. And then we get into the best lightsaber fight ever in Star Wars, which is between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Simultaneously, we see the fight between Yoda and Palpatine. I do wish these weren't cross-cut as much, if you ask me. They're still great, but I wish maybe the Palpatine and Yoda ones should have started sooner. Then it could have ended a bit sooner within the Anakin and Obi-Wan fight. I like the idea of them crossing over, but maybe not so much. That is still good, but it's sometimes annoying when it cuts away from the great fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin, where if you've seen it on sort of YouTube clips of it, where it's just them two fighting edited together, it's great, honestly. It's such a good fight, and the choreography is top notch. And I love how it's set on Mustafar, you know, this somewhat hellish environment. The lava setting just adds to that tension and sort of rage and hatred. It really fits the emotions in this fight. You know, we get a few great moments. I love how the fight somewhat travels around. You know, it's not just in one location. And we move about, and it's getting more precarious and just dangerous as they're like fighting above lava and stuff. And I like how between it all we get some dialogue between them, and Obi-Wan's somewhat trying to reach out to Anakin, but I think he knows he's fighting a losing battle with that, and he's gonna have to stop him in a physical sense. And I love how you can see how much Anakin's been manipulated by Palpatine at this point. And then we get the final part where Obi-Wan gets the high ground, and ultimately it's Anakin's arrogance that ends up to the reason why he's defeated. And I love how he tries to use the move Obi-Wan used on Darth Maul. I just wish there was some setup to that in the previous film, you know, Attack of the Clones, or even this one where Anakin's trying that move on various enemies and it's having various results, like sometimes going well, sometimes not. That'd have been great, I feel, but it's still great, you know, if you can recall that. And you are a big fan and you think, oh, he's trying Obi-Wan's move. And, you know, it ends not as well as when Obi-Wan did it and he gets his legs and hand chopped off. And it's great because you don't really know what happened to him with him becoming Darth Vader. Obviously something physical happened to him, and I don't think you could have ever have guessed it had been this brutal. And I love the next moment where you see Obi-Wan, which I mentioned, where he's somewhat in shock and he isn't really expressing how he feels about the situation, and then he just sort of lets it all out. He somewhat breaks at this point, and I think it's some great acting between them both. You know, Hayden Christensen gets a lot of stick, but he's honestly great in this film, and Ewan McGregor's, you know, he's great as Obi-Wan, and it's great acting there, and I just love how brutal it is. And then Anakin's like burning alive, and you're like, all right, so I guess that's why he's in that suit then. You know, it's such a great foreshadowing for the stuff to come. Well, I'm saying foreshadowing, it's the origin of it almost. And he picks up his lightsaber, you know, oh, that's Luke's or whatever. And I like the idea that Obi-Wan leaves him. You know, I think Obi-Wan feels like Anakin's dead. You know, he's not going to survive it, which a human wouldn't. And he can't bring himself almost to kill him, you know, even though he kind of has it, he can't like put him out his misery because he does still love him as a brother, you know what I mean? And then we get to Padme giving birth, and I know a few people don't like this because she dies of a broken heart, but I've always liked the theory that this part where she's giving birth to Luke and Leia is cross-cut with the birth of Darth Vader, Anakin sort of getting the suit on and all the robotics and stuff like that. What if, in a messed up twist of fate, Anakin did discover the key to, you know, preventing death itself, and in his mind all he could think about was Padme, and he essentially stole her life force to keep himself alive, you know, not directly but subconsciously. I honestly think that's great stuff. You know, that is a theory a few people have, and it's just super tragic. And personally, that's what I believe. I think it adds a lot of sadness to the story and a lot of irony. But like I said, I love the cross-cutting of Darth Vader being born with the twins, because it's almost like Doom and Hope almost being born at the same time. I think that's great stuff. And we see that Luke and Leia are split apart to keep them safe, and Leia goes with Senator Organa, which I haven't really spoke about, but he's cool in this film as well. He only has a small sort of role. And we see Obi-Wan takes Luke to Tatooine with, to Anakin's sort of somewhat family, the guy married his mum or whatever. And I know some people think that's stupid, but at the end of the day, if you're Anakin and you'd had your legs and hands chopped off, your wife killed, and then your mum killed as well, the last place you'd want to go is the place you lived as a kid where you were a slave, you know what I mean? And I really like the idea of the film ending on somewhat of a hopeful tone where it's looking at the twin sunset, because that's sort of the whole point of Star Wars, the idea of hope even in unsurmountable defeat. And I think that's such a great sort of ending to leave it on. This film, the heroes do lose, but that doesn't mean they've lost forever in a way. Also, I just want to mention the soundtrack for this film. Honestly, amazing. It's got so many great tracks, I've said with the prequels, the music's been great, and music's great in all Star Wars films. It's the one consistent sort of piece of the films that's always great, even if everything else is a bit wavy. Like I said, Phantom Menace, good music there, but only a few standout pieces. Attack of the Clones really raised the bar, and it had a lot of great tracks that are really memorable. But Revenge of the Sith, it's so good. It's maybe the best film in terms of soundtrack going for Star Wars. You've got so many great themes in it and character motifs. You've got Order 66. Anakin's dark deeds, Battle of the Heroes. There's so many good ones throughout, and they're used at appropriate times. They don't feel overused, and they do add, to already great moments in the film. But overall, yeah, I pretty much love this film. Is it my favourite Star Wars? Probably, yeah, to be honest. I'm a huge fan of the prequels. I know they get a lot of stick, but I personally quite like them, and I can understand the issues they have. But this film, the issues it has are so minor. Like I said, it carries over some issues, but overall, they have definitely learnt from the mistakes of this third one, and it wraps up a lot of my favourite characters. Anakin is my favourite character in Star Wars, so this is his film almost. And, it's great to see Obi-Wan's character, and it gets you excited for films that came out like 20 to 30 years prior than it, which, you know what I mean? That's such a testament to it. And overall, it's honestly great, and I can't really fault it. I love watching this film, and it gets so much right, and it's learned so much. So yeah, I'd probably give it a 10 out of 10. And maybe to some people that's being too generous to it, but there is that personal aspect. I really do enjoy this film, and I enjoyed it as a kid, and the prequels are my era, and this is the ultimate film in the prequels. So yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya. So they wipe C-3POs, man, but not R2-D2s. You must have some mad PTSD.